Well, it is yet another day where the energy complex, the commodity complex, continues to trend higher. At what point is a wider conflict priced in? How much further does this rally potentially have to go?
Well, I think that the rally is to do with geopolitical risk, but as I said, it is also that risk comes on top of what is a very fundamentally a strong oil market right now, and the geopolitical risks are just adding juice to it. Clearly, a lot will depend on what any retaliation from Iran looks like, whether that comes from proxies in the region or it's a direct strike, how successful that strike is, how much people feel that Israel will have to retaliate again in turn. So I think depending on what happens from here, clearly there is more upside, but it will be a question of whether that retaliation happens and what form it takes and how successful it is.
Well, what do you make of the IEA report, the International Energy Agency, this morning? They've cut their demand for oil in 2025, and they see even slower growth in 2025. I mean, that runs counter to what has really been expected. The resiliency of economies in the world, and OPEC itself perhaps doesn't exactly agree with that type of forecast.
Yes, there does seem to be divergence, as there has been for several months, between what the IEA, which has taken a more cautious view of demand than some other parties, OPEC especially, but also we heard from several large oil traders this week that they see really strong demand. And Vitol, for example, said that growth would this year might be 1.9 million barrels a day, compared with the 1.2 that the IEA is now predicting. I would make perhaps a couple of points that 1.2 is still relatively strong by historical standards, and it will grow almost virtually the same amount next year. So yes, it is interesting that they've downgraded things a little bit, but I don't think that many traders will see that as an enormous change in the narrative at this stage.
Well, OPEC itself said yesterday that the robust oil demand outlook for the summer warrants careful market monitoring. Is there any sign that this summer demand will be extraordinary, and anything different that OPEC will need to adjust to?
Well, the summer is the peak demand season, as Americans especially take to the roads for holidays. So we're already in April and the market's quite tight. So the fear is that if we get as strong driving season as it can really pressure the supply-demand balance in the market. And so people will be watching that demand figure very closely. The other thing that they will be watching very closely is how OPEC Plus decides to respond to the current market when it meets in June.